All right. Well, I'll let people in as they come in, but I think we may as well make a start and crack into it. Welcome everybody who's joining us tonight for our Manly Spirits Coastal Stone virtual tasting. That is a mouthful, but I'm very excited to be joined by our special guest, co-founder David Whittaker, and if we're lucky, we might even see his partner and the brains behind the bottle design and all the beautiful parts of Coastal Stone. Vanessa might pop in if she's around. But before I hand over to David properly, just some housekeeping to go over. If you've got multiple glasses for the multiple whiskies, we highly recommend it. This tasting in particular, because we have so many wine cask releases that are super cool and super interesting. So it would be a really good opportunity to compare and go back to the different ones. Almost all of these are cask strength, so obviously please don't drink and drive. Have water droppers handy if you need them. And all of our tastings are recorded as well, as Ollie reminded me. So for those who can't make it tonight or who want to watch back or want to go back over it, all of the tastings are recorded and you can watch them later on our YouTube channel. Ollie will send everyone the link. We run a poll at the end of every tasting as well, so you can vote for your top 2 favorites because we know it's hard to pick just one. And yeah, if you've got any questions, tasting notes, anything like that, please pop them in the chat, and I will do my best to ask them to David and get answers for your questions. We love hearing your tasting notes as well. I am actually drinking with everyone tonight, which is exciting. But yes, I love hearing what you guys are tasting from the whiskies because we're all so different. I think that's about everything covered, and I know I'm keen to jump in, so I will hand it over to the wonderful David to tell us all about Manly Spirits and their whiskey.
Thanks, Emma. Thank you very much for that introduction, and hello and welcome all. Thanks for coming to listen to me. That's a bit of a privilege for me if you're listening to me, but I do love talking about whiskey, let's face it. I never would have started a distillery in 2017 if I didn't want to drink it and talk about it. And when you craft it, it's very easy to talk about. So maybe a bit of introduction for those who haven't heard of Manly Spirits or Coastal Stone Whiskey. By the way, what I reckon is get some nor'easter. If you're going to start, let's start sniffing your nor'easter while I'm talking. Otherwise, so nor'easter is, oh, what do they look like? What do their bottles look like? Have they got just, all right. So put some nor'easter, okay, in your little glass, because let's face it, I can crap on, but you can be sniffing like I can some of our lovely whiskey. So, in case you don't know me or us, so I'm one of the founders of Manly Spirits Distillery. So we're located in the northern beaches of Sydney. We're a spirits distillery, so we do all sorts of stuff, but we've been making single malt whiskey since we started in 2017. So where are we now? 2023. Oh my God. So that's 6 years already. I can't believe it. We've been laying down malt whiskey. We decided to name our whiskey Coastal Stone. Big call, because we thought we are Manly Spirits, but we believe that we wanted our whiskey to have a totally different feel and persona from all our other products, like our white spirits. So Coastal Stone whiskey is what we're called, made by Manly Spirits. So it's in a beautiful bottle. Vanessa, my business partner and lovely wife, designs it all. But it's all reflecting. If I want to talk about what Coastal Stone is, it's a bit like we're trying to put Sydney in a bottle. So it's the coast. It's like an eroding sandstone cliff. These special ones have actual sandstone in the stopper, but it's a package, right? We need to make beautiful whiskey, but it's just something to set it off. All right, is what we got. We are grain to glass, if that makes sense. So we mash all our barley. We predominantly predominantly. There's one today that's going to break that rule. We've added the Peated Port Cask is breaking our rule, but we chucked it in there for you guys. Nobody's tasted one of our peated whiskies yet, so this is a bit of a first for us to see what you think of it. But we're Australian barley. We have a brew house, so we mash barley, we ferment it, we choose our fermentation conditions. We double distill it in the traditional way, double copper pot stills. I design the stills. I'm an engineer by background, so I had a lot of fun doing this. Kind of reverse engineered some Scottish distilleries stills that I liked, and got ours made to suit. Probably the main point is that they kind of have extra reflux. I'm presuming you guys are fairly educated, I'm guessing, if you've heard a lot of distillers talk and you've been to distilleries. So they're nice and tall, and they've got the line arms, or between the top of the swan neck and the condenser, instead of sloping down like most do around the world, not all, but most, ours slope upwards. And why? What that does is that anything that condenses in that swan neck, rather than passing forward into the distillate, into the condenser, it falls back into the still, and it gets redistilled. So that redistilling, or extra distillation, makes the spirit maltier and lighter and finer, slightly purer. So I would say that our new make spirit is somewhere between a Scottish new make and an Irish new make. And if you know your stuff, Scottish whiskey's double distilled, Irish whiskey is triple distilled. It's probably closer to the double, but it is finer and maltier. I was always inspired by Japanese whiskey in terms of that clean kind of floral aspect too. So a number of things we aim to kind of aim that way, but certainly that the stills and the way the stills are designed do that. Emma, what do we do with questions? Do we save them all up or stop and pause and ask?
Yeah, so if you guys have any questions, pop them in the chat, and then if one comes up, I'll find a kind of a midpoint to.
So anytime, if I'm saying stuff, you go, what the hell's he talking about? And you want to ask a question, then stick it on the chat there.
Yeah. Yeah, I reckon most of these familiar faces are pretty familiar with distilling and reflux, but yeah, I always think of reflux in a still as like, think about the effort it would take to climb up. It makes, it's so much harder for that little molecule of whiskey to climb up I'm lazy. I don't like climbing hills,
Well, yeah, and it also gets trapped. It gets trapped because the cold copper turns it back to liquid, and it rolls back down into the still. Yeah. So it traps it more. I was actually inspired. If you want to be geeky, I'm going to be geeky here. If anyone's been to Islay, anyone been to Islay? Scotland? Oh my God. If you want to go, if you like your peated whiskies, one time do a pilgrimage. It's like going to Mecca, kind of, if you're into whiskey. Go to Islay, which is, what's that, southwest coast of Scotland, kind of near Campbelltown. There's 7 or 8 distilleries there, but Ardbeg, anyone drunk any Ardbeg before? Maybe is it 7, 8? Is it 8? Thanks.
Yeah, 8. I think there's 8. 3 more coming. I was there recently, and everybody on Islay's like, oh, there's another 3 opening.
The bucket list.
I have no room.
Yeah, I did this in 2016. It's like going backward in time 50 years. It was gorgeous. But why do I say? Because I went to Ardbeg Distillery. I quite like Ardbeg, Coravecchi and all those kind of peaty big things. And they have a thing called a purifier on their still. So rather than, it's the same aim though. What it does is it kind of takes back the stuff that was going to go to the condenser, and they kind of roll it back into the still. So I saw what they did and I thought, how would I do that? But my method's simpler. I just slope them this way. But I was inspired by what they did. And I kind of just looked at, who was it? Kilhoman, who were in Islay. They were not the newest distillery anymore, but one of the newest. I've got a big boil on the, or on the spirit still. Anyway, I could talk a lot. I better not speak too much. So yeah, we're growing glass, design the stills. Okay, what else about Coastal Stone? Right, we want to make Australian whiskey. We are making Australian whiskey, but we want to look at the provenance of this country. So we predominantly use Australian barley. So East Coast, kind of up and down, somewhere between a pale malt and an ale malt. We like the ale malts that are a bit more roasted, but so ale we've used a lot, just a little bit more roasted. What else was I going to say? Yeah, so yeah, the other thing, of course, is casks or barrels. So you know, traditionally whiskey from Scotland is matured in ex-bourbon. Okay, but if you look at the history of whiskey, it's been driven by the availability of barrels. So in this country, we do have an amazing wine industry and amazing access to quality, ex-wine barrels. So we're not Starward. So Starward, we know that's absolutely their thing. If you guys must have drunk a bit of their stuff and heard of them, they are red wine cask people, like, completely. That's their thing. We just use that as part of what we do. I love American oak bourbon, right? I mean, the cask influence. So we lay down a load of ex-bourbon, first fill, typically Heaven Hill, Jack Daniels, Maker's Mark. So out of Kentucky, we lay a lot of those down. But and I should get into the Nor'easter. Nor'easter would be 30-40% ex-bourbon. Okay, so let's start talking about Nor'easter. 40% ex-bourbon, but we also want to make and are making Australian wine cask work. I like charred, recharred, STR'd, shaved and recharred casks. I think the wet wine ones, i.e. just pour them out and put it in, they lack a bit and take a bit more, but we use a little bit of that, but mostly they've been shaved and recharred. Our wine casks are predominantly out of the Barossa Valley. They're I'm allowed to say Barossa Valley Big Reds from some winery over there. But there's a cooperage called AP John who've been around a long time. They produce beautiful casks. They're made in Australia too, which is lovely. So a big part of Nor'easter, maybe 60% is ex-charred. They're typically Shirazes, I believe. In big casks too. The other thing I'll say is we like big casks, like 200, 225, 300. All the whiskies in the Nor'easter are in that range. In fact, there's some 500 litre. There's some puncheons if you know your cask. So it's got a fair bit of the wine cask was in big puncheons, big 500 litre puncheons.
Yeah.
So it's 30-ish% ex-bourbon, it's 60-ish% ex kind of charred big reds. But the little sinister sauce in this one is it's got some French oak in it. So have a little taste.
Yeah, super. Yeah, because I always get that like dry Italian biscotti thing from this, and it must be the French oak. Michael has a question: where are you guys sourcing the barley, and do you recouper the ex-bourbon barrels yourself? Well, get them recoupered here.
Okay, barley up and down the east coast. I think they're predominantly Victoria and South Australia. Recent years we've moved to Cooper's Malt, ex-South Australia, but east coast kind of barley. We've only really changed once. We've had Barrett Burston malt for a long time and Cooper's, but good Australian kind of beer. They're really beer barleys. I think that's why Aussie whiskies also have a big flavor difference, because they're not the kind of high yield just bred for distilling. They're really designed to make beer, which is flavoursome, whiskies made from beer. So that's that. What was the other question?
His other question was, are you recoupering the ex-bourbons?
No. Apart from getting the bung stave removed, but no, there's no. When it's first fill, I don't believe there's any need to do that. They're rich and full of full of massive characters. So they've already been charred. They were charred by the bourbon guys. They took new American oak and charred them. So they've been through that charring process. In fact, I think it's subtlety's hard. Subtlety's hard. So if you overchar them and overcooper them, they can actually give too much. So I think bourbons don't. My view is they don't need that. And I even think that the second fills will be glorious because they're kind of the spirits coming forward and the oak's going to the back. So maybe third or fourth time. I don't know if you want to keep them. I think you can get them. Refurbished as such. But no, we don't with the bourbon casks.
Yeah, cool. Now, a question I have is when you were first laying it down, because obviously a lot of distillers make that progression of moving towards bigger barrels over time. Were you pretty much dead set, cool, 200s and then maybe, 100 or a 50 or whatever if we need it?
Yeah, we've always, apart from when we first started, we laid down some hundreds. And that if you followed Coastal Stone Whiskey, if you have, they were our Element series where we did port, sherry, bourbon, Pinot, what have I forgotten, Shiraz. We did those. I did those. Just laid 4 of them down to start with as a nod, bit to Tasmanian whiskey too, and Bill liked the way they do it with their STR cast hundreds. They were just what we did first as a kind of a thing, right? And that was our first launch over a year and a half ago. But since then, and from the start, we've been laying down big casks. So I do that as well because our spirit is beautiful, light and fine and malty. So I think a big cask that kind of takes all the spirit character away detracts from our spirit. So I actually think we make better whiskey. And the more I get into it, the bigger casks are almost better. Because they're not overpowering. They stand back a bit and give the nice balance. 200s to 300s are what we're filling loads of these days.
Yeah, cool. Scott's got some great tasting notes. His spice on the end, licorice, vanilla, caramel. Michael reckons is very Moorish, getting a lot of bourbon influence, honey, vanilla, citrus, fresh fruits. I definitely get the bourbon influence the most.
Right.
In the nor'easter.
It is definitely, like we say, like vanilla chocolate. Like if you look at our tasting card, stone fruit. This is our, if I want to call this is our signature single malt. This is our, bit unfair, breakfast single malt. You know what I mean? It's our
breakfast whiskey.
It's our $100 whiskey. Okay, so it's an Australian single malt for $100. We are actually moving the bottle to a 700ml bottle in a couple of months, and we're keeping the price the same. So what you're going to see in retail is a 700ml bottle of Nor'easter for $100, pending bloody excise increases. Sorry, guys, we have to keep putting it up because of the goddamn government. So let me put that as a disclaimer. We're hitting $100 a litre in 1 month's time, $100 a litre of tax. Go and lobby with your blooming politicians to tell them to stop killing the Australian spirits industry. $100 a litre, I can't believe it. Anyway, we have to pass those through. But yes, so Nor'easter is, I'm really proud of it. I'm highly proud of this whiskey because it's kind of using a fair bit of ex-Australian wine, but it's got all that lovely bourbon influence. It's a chewy, tasty, with a nice finish on it with the French oak. So it's the marriage of different casks. Because what we could do is just take a bourbon cask and give you that, right? But what we've done is we've kind of selected different cask types and filled the tasting experience. Anyway, I hope you like it. I like it, and I like the fact also that we're doing it at an approachable price.
Yeah, it makes such a difference having something consistent and affordable that like you can go back and just keep buying it. I think that's really the game changer and the turning point. Now, I've said that to a lot of Australian distillers. I'm like, single casks are amazing and they're fun and they're cool, but not every single whiskey drinker is going to be like, cool, I want to buy a bottle I can probably never get again. I want to buy something consistent and always have it in my house.
So we've started with that, right? But that doesn't mean that's what we just do, because that would be no fun. So yes, we do that. And as a heads up to everyone too, we're launching in a couple of months. We call it our Fine Australian Blended Whiskey. It's not tonight, but we're doing there's not many Aussie whiskies that are blended, i.e. they have a grain whiskey and a malt whiskey. But it's more for cocktails than for what we're doing tonight. We're launching one of those as well. We're not talking about that tonight, though.
No, we might pop onto speaking of single cask special releases.
Yeah, so now we'll go to the real good stuff, which is we call them our rare drams. So we will always, every year do a couple of interesting releases like this, for sure. So these ones, our Italian series, were inspired by a dude, an owner of a winemaker called Minnow, a winery, from Griffith, New South Wales, called Minnow and Co. He came to our distillery, and I was still running the bar. Oh, that guy looks like Ian, but it's not. I was still running the bar, so he introduced himself, and we made friends. So he makes, in Griffith, they make light Italian red wines. Light, maybe not. Like these ones, Sangiovese, Montepulciano, Aglianico. Who can say that really lovely, beautifully? Aglianico. Apparently the three top wine varietals in Italy. Right. So they make these. That's their thing. They're from Sicily originally. So when I was talking to him, I said, oh, geez, I would like to put our whiskey in some of your casks. So he sold us some of his. We sent them to, if you're geeky a bit, we sent them to Andrew Young, who's a bit of an artisan cooper in Seppeltsfield in South Australia. So Andrew took the heads off. By the way, they're 300-litre hogsheads. They're big casks. Took the heads off, gave him his magic flame, and recoopered them, and then we put our spirit in. So we put them in 3 separate casks. So tonight you're going to try all 3, as I just said, Sangiovese, Montepulciano, Aglianico. So the interest in this is it's the same spirit, ours. We filled it on the same day. We took them out on the same day. They were matured in the same spot, which is in the distillery on the top of our stacks. So the difference is purely the cask, right? So when you taste the 3, you can isolate, you can say the spirit's the same, distillery's the same, everything's the same. The difference is only what was in there first and the barrel. Okay. So that's why I find them interesting. They're about 4.5 years old from memory, 4.5. Is their age. They had pretty harsh maturation conditions because they were quite close to the still. So they've been heating, cooling a lot. We have big angel. So one of our things is our angel share is massive because of that, which means we're kind of maturing quicker. If our ABV climbs in a cask, which is odd in Scotland, they drop. So anyway, why don't we try? Was it Montepulciano first?
Yeah, so the Montepulciano, and God, I spent some time in Italy, so I'm not butchering these names. So because I think it's a region in northern Italy, and they make the grape varietal there. It's kind of similar to like those brighter kind of red fruity wines. So, and with this wine series, I remember, I think the whiskey list sat down and we tasted all 3 of these because we were going to pick one to bottle for a special release. And I think we bottled some of the Sangiovese
You did.
from this
Yes.
release. And yeah, I remember it was so hard because they're all so good. But yeah, the Sangiovese was just the absolute winner. We got a couple of questions.
Okay.
Michael, were they full maturation in each of these casks? Yeah, weren't they?
Full maturation means, did we leave it in that cask from? Yes. We haven't double cast them. Absolutely full maturation in those casks. Yes.
Yeah, cool. And Vince wanted to know what the kind of the age on the nor'easter is.
Oh, okay. The nor'easter depends on the cask. It was between some were 3, some were 5. The bourbon was 5, so older, and the wine was younger, and the French was 5 too. So between 3 and 5, but a lot of it more towards the 5 years. Oh, one thing I will tell you about, I know we're jumping back to it, but ooh, can you see that says 2022 on there? Maybe. All right. Anyway, it does. The nor'easter we're doing in vintages, okay, and that's because we believe the whiskey will change as the years go by, and due to 2 things. One is the wine changes on a year to year depending on the climate. So, and we're using wine casks, so that'll change, and it'll just develop slightly. So you will see it modify slightly as the years go by, but we give it a year so that you can come back to it and see the difference. Any other questions before I move on?
No, I think Wynyard was just saying that, you know, we believe you when we can see that. Yeah, I know that I always try and see as many faces as possible, so it's super, super small when I'm looking at it. But yeah, I'm curious to know what you guys are tasting and what you think, because I distinctly remember all these whiskeys taste pink, which sounds bonkers, but it's just pink things, pink fairy floss, pink candy, you know, like you know, pink cherries and stuff. We do have one question.
Yeah.
Ian Schmidt is asking if you're wearing
it is Ian.
tie, because it is Ian. It is Ian.
It
Absolutely.
is Ian.
You missed his lovely.
It is Ian. Right.
Yeah. It's from afar, Ian. You look like.
What's Ian asking with Troy? Troy's yeah. What's Ian asking? You can ask it yourself, Ian.
I think he was just being rude in the comments.
Was he? Oh, what did he ask?
But yeah, Michael says it's a dry finish.
Oh, right.
So
yeah.
with the grape varietals that you guys chose, I know that you've got a lot of other varietals laid down. What is it, kind of a that sounds good, let's try it vibe, or is it a we really like this wine style, so we're gonna try it? Or
these were just these definitely started with that sounds good, let's try it. But they are, well, this one's kind of milk chocolate. Has anyone drunk Montepulciano? Go and drink a bottle if you haven't. But they're very kind of luscious. So that kind of this is of the 3 of them, this is the most approachable, and people are newer to whiskey would like these of the 3 because of that kind of that creaminess from it.
yes.
But yeah, what do we think of this? What do we think, guys?
Yeah, Michael, the pink lemonade call is absolutely bang
Pink
on.
lemonade.
Very pink lemonade.
We-
Julia gets toasted milk buns. I can kind of see that. Like,
we say bright forest fruits of cherry, wild cherry and boysenberry with floral notes on the nose. A body of milk chocolate with sweet custard, lemon curd, plums, and black fruits. And a finish slightly drying tannins and smooth chocolate custard cream. That's what we put together for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I get what you mean, Julia, that like that not bready but creamy thing when you get those pastries and they're doughy but soft and fluffy at the same time. Yeah. Heidi says it's very nice. Boysenberry ice cream as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we might dig into the Sangiovese to compare it now.
Okay. I just want to keep drinking it now. All right.
You can do that if you want. I mean, you know, it's your whiskey.
So I've cut my hand here. We're moving our packaging line today, and I was doing all this metal work, so I sliced my finger and it's bleeding. So forgive me. When us distillers, right? We don't just snip booze. We don't sit here all day just going, we do lots of stuff to make it all happen.
Yeah,
I can tell you that.
things.
Right. Yeah, I won't show you my finger.
Just let us know if you're getting taste of copper.
Yeah, copper. Yeah, true. Right, so this is Sangiovese cask. It's probably the wine varietal that is most commonly drunk. That everyone probably had Sangiovese. If you've been to Amalfi Coast or just drank it, it's a kind of light style. So it's actually okay. Let's have a taste.
Yeah, I think it's like a really light Pinot Noir style kind of equivalent. And I highly recommend that you guys delve into trying different wines. I'm not the biggest wine person, but I find it so interesting to compare the wines and whiskey, especially in Australia. But yeah, there's I think Sangiovese is from the Tuscany region. So.
I think so. So what do we say about it? We say the nose has floral and citrus forward aromatics, cinnamon spice. It's certainly got a spice element to this one in the finish, if you like. It's still creamy and buttery. Our spirit still shines through all these, so there is a commonality for sure between them, and there should be a commonality. But I like looking for the differences because that's the cask. We say creamy, buttery body with spices of cinnamon, licorice, mint, and paprika, giving way to tart, cherry, red plum, and strawberry. And finishing with sweet tannins with a smooth cinnamon spice finish. Yes.
Definitely very good. Ollie says he loves a good Sangiovese and this is his favorite of the trio. Well, yeah, no wonder we picked.
Yes, and we did a special bottling with you guys. So you can buy a 58% version, I think. This one here that you're tasting tonight is the Coastal Stone release, which is 52, isn't it?
But yeah, I definitely get that cinnamon. There's in America you get Big Red, which is like a hot, spicy cinnamon thing. It's very cinnamon in America is a totally different ballgame. But yeah, it's definitely that. It's like sour strawberry straps and stuff like that. It's super, super cool. But yeah, Wynyard agrees it's buttery. Heidi agrees that licorice, and Michael definitely mild spice on the finish. Cool.
I like that. It's interesting. They actually they improve in the bottle a while. Like we bottled these 4 or 5 months ago, but coming back to them now, having sat and rested in a bottle, they're mellowing right out beautifully. So I'm just learning they need to rest a while. I'm just keen to get them out, but they do go by sitting there for a bit. Yeah. Should we go to the next, or what's the go?
Oh, I think we should crack into the Aglianico. I will say though that like that last little bit.
Aglianico.
Yeah.
Apparently, you got to speak. You just got to go up and down when you speak. Aglianico. Aglianico.
But yeah.
So what have I got here? Aglianico. Whoa.
Careful with the cork.
All right. So whack a bit in your glass, as I am. This is the bartender favorite, actually. It's kind of the biggest flavor, I think, of the three. Anyway, have a little taste.
So Heidi has a quick question as well. Do you guys rest the whiskey in the bottles? So after you bottle them, do you let them?
Not deliberately. Not deliberately. But I mean, we're new. We've only been our whiskey's only been in bottles now for 18 months. So we've got to, what I'd like to do is kind of learn from what I'm getting to, but I can see that letting them rest for a while helps. I mean, Ian here, if he could tell me, he'd know that. But yeah, okay. But I think so. They settle down. I don't know what it is. It's like the molecules all rearranged. They need time to kind of mellow with each other and kind of integrate.
Well, I suppose it's that like that basic physics thing of, you know, a liquid settling into the container that it's a part of. You know, it's like a cat, right? Like when a cat gets into its container and then you see that moment where they're settled and all the like all the fur and the fluff is like evened out, but it takes them a minute to get there.
Right.
Whiskey's probably just like a cat.
True. Yeah, something like that. But it definitely does mellow. We let them look. We should. The other one is after you break them down. That means when you drop it from cask strength to bottle strength. We try and break it down and then wait some time there because we get flocks forming, you know, precipitates. So we're non-chill filtered, by the way. So you will see definitely little, you know, kind of wispy things in the cask. Proud of that. That's fine. That's flavor. But with some of the casks though, you do get a fair bit dropped out. So we flock it for a while, but otherwise it looks a bit hazy. Oh, so where are we? This is the Aglianico cask, isn't it? So what do we say? We say nose, deep, rich toffee notes with subtle floral edges. A fruity and creamy body of spiced plums, fig raspberry and burnt butter. And it finishes with savory and soft tannins topped with honeyed nuts and creme brulee characteristics. There's a bit, by the way, guys, employ a winemaker. So our distillery manager now, we employed Dave. I love him to death. A year ago, he's also amazing. Like we put our packaging line on a truck today. We moved it from one site to another, pulled it apart. But what he's also very good at doing is describing what he tastes. So to me, that's the hardest thing, is like tasting something and remembering what it is and being able to kind of relate it. But so these come from Dave, but he's a great winemaker. I think winemaking skills are very appropriate and transferable to making spirits, particularly whiskey, actually.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And you know, you see I mean, I know Ian Schmidt's in the room, but you see the winemaking talent in South Australia translates a lot to some of the spirit as well. So, but the notes, Scott says there's definitely fennel on the nose. Vineyard says there's a nice finish. I'm getting like Morello cherries.
Morello cherries.
Yeah, like those kind of sour cherries.
Okay.
So very, very cool. But yeah, it's very interesting. I will say as well, guys, this might be a good time because we are talking about the 3 wine releases. Tonight we have a couple bottles for sale on the online shop, and we're doing 10% off for all of them. I've just shared the link in the chat if you guys wanted to grab any one of these 3. I'm very excited for the poll later. We'll wait for a bit for the poll, but I'm excited to see what the favorite is out of the 3 because they're all so very different and so interesting. But yeah, I thought I'd just pop that in there if you wanted to snag a bottle of the Italian series.
Well, that's what we're all about. We want you to drink them. So yeah. So the interest there is just circling back is same spirit, same distilleries, filled the same time, matured at the same time, and they're literally showing the effect of the cask. So I find that very interesting and wonderful to kind of see. So we'll do some more of these. We haven't done it, to tell you the truth. We haven't done a lot like this. Is pretty rare for us. That's why I call them rare drams. We just kind of filled some Chardonnay casks recently, but haven't done a lot like this. So someone asked that before. No, this was a bit of a one-off for us. I don't mean one-off forever, but we don't have a lot else kind of coming like this. They're pretty special.
Yeah, cool. Will you do a like a white wine?
Yeah, we filled some Chardonnays. They were hard to get. We filled. I think they came from WA. I can't remember the winery, but we filled those last year. We've done a load of French oak. They were typically whites. They were heavily STR'd, so they were. What do I mean? I mean they were like a huge amount was scoured with a router from the inside of the wood, and they were toasted. So those ones are going to be fascinating. They're kind of 5 or 6 years old now, so they're a little bit in. I mentioned the nor'easter. They're a blend component in the nor'easter. Okay, but as a single kind of cask release, they're going to be fascinating. But yeah, we're kind of doing Shiraz is as the main thing. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Do you think you'll add like another kind of core item similar to the nor'easter, but more focused on a red wine? Or
No. I think what we will add though are fortified. So it's pretty hard to get sherry or Pera or port or tawny, but the one we'll do last is a bit of a hybrid if we're ready for it.
yeah.
Right.
We wanted to pour the last whiskey. I'm super excited for this. I had a smell of it before, and my brain
I've
was
had-
like, I don't know what's going on.
To be honest with you guys, I've only pretty much just sniffed it out of the barrel and kind of had a little taste. We just kind of plucked it out, and this is cask strength, by the way, 62. And from memory, oh god, I should know this better. It's about 4 years old, I think, from memory. 3.5, 4. So it's a work in progress. It's a 300 litre, so that's a hogshead, ex tawny cask. From memory, it was SA Cooperage, I think, where it came from. I think it was SA. Yeah. I should talk about. So right, this is totally off Coastal Stone branding, and if Vanessa was here, she'd be killing me. But bugger it, I love peated whiskey, so here it is. It uses Scottish heavily peated malt. From memory, it was crisp, but I've forgotten if it was beds or crisp, but 50 ppm heavily peated barley.
And how old is this now?
Oh, wow. Yep. It's about 4 years from memory.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's an export cask. So it's a double whammy. It's port and it's peat. So it's a big kind of flavor combination. It's pretty well. Let me have a taste actually.
Get a taste. This is definitely one where we want as much feedback as possible, because like we said it on the little sample bottle and whatnot, it's a work in progress. So
I like it at cask strength actually.
it does not feel like 62%.
No, it doesn't, does it? No.
Not even a little bit.
So you've got that 50 ppm, 50, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember going to Bruichladdich Distillery, which is on Isla, that make Octomore. If you've ever heard of that stuff. Their phenol level from memory was about 200 or something like that. So that they asked I remember going on the tour, they said they asked their maltsters, give us the biggest phenol level you can. So they just maxed out their phenol, and they they just, I don't know how, I'm not a malter, but I've never malted barley in my whole life, but so they got 200-ish or something like that, but this is a 50. I wish I could talk to Ian. I'd love to talk to Ian and drink whiskey together, and he could tell me all about it.
Might we might get Ian to share his peated whiskey secrets with us later.
But that's pretty good. Like at 62,
yeah,
I'm getting that actually. Like there's often when you drink a whiskey at cask strength, it's a bit in your face, but I don't know. What do people think?
Yeah, I think because Scott was saying you straight away get the smoky peat. Julia loves it. She reckons there's optimal vibes for sure. Michael, beautiful smoky campfire peaty on the nose. Yeah, I like it's really good. For me, because I'm a massive sweet tooth, when I see peated port, I want the burnt sugar, you know, I want the
Yeah.
leatheriness that port comes through. I feel like you could leave this in for another 4 years and it'd still be great. But that's just me. But you could bottle it today and it would still be amazing too. So it's
What,
yeah.
what they say, I mean, that peat diminishes in a cask as well. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's only 4 years, so I'm not sure it's going to diminish quite yet. But anyway, yep. So we've what have we done in peat? Done a lot of ex-bourbon. I've generally put the peated malt into ex-bourbon, by the way. Generally. So these are very peculiar in that I chucked a few into ex-port casks, but the peated malt we have run, most of it is more classical ex-bourbon as well. So this is unusual. Yeah. Don't think I've done any sherry peated. So
Something to think about. Was it?
Yeah.
Have you just done one really large peated run, and these are the barrels that?
We
Or have
did.
you done a few?
I like. I kind of like to do. There's single cast releases, and that's what the Italian series are. But sometimes I go the other. I guess well, we have to make enough to make sense. So these, I think, we filled 12 hogsheads. So what's that? 12 times 3, 3,600. That'll make a fair few bottles. Not a huge amount. Oh God, Ian, can you tell me what that would make? 12, 5,000 bottles maybe. Make about 5,000, something like that. So not huge, but not 500. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, Ollie's asking the important question is, when are you planning to release this one?
Oh goodness, I don't know. Well, it's kind of like feedback because we talk about age and age statement. So how important is that versus the way it tastes? I mean, that tastes pretty good to me. So don't know. We'll probably release it. What do you guys think? Should it sit in a cask for 10 years or be sucked out right now and put into a Ian's shaking his head. Good to see. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. I trust what he says.
Yep.
Yep.
Julia says if you bottle it now, she'd get one. Michael reckons a bit longer. I'm the same. I reckon you could probably push it one more year and you'd still have the peatiness, but it would be a little bit more port influence.
Right.
Vinod says longer as well. Vinod, the
Yep.
peat was from either Baird's or Crisp malt from Scotland.
Yep.
I think most of the peated malt that comes to Australia is from Baird's. I think they're probably just one of
They had a big fire. I can't remember. One of those malts had a big fire, so it's really hard to get it now.
Yeah.
So just when I'm talking about peat, by the way, or smoke, in recent years we've moved to New Zealand smoked Bladfields guys do it. So that's what we've moved to because I'd like to have our malt more antipodes, more local. But anyway, that will come into the future too. That New Zealand stuff. Yeah.
Very cool. It might be a whole other section of the whiskey that you make, so that Vanessa keeps it separate from the
No, it'll be part of the whiskey. Blackgate. They're Blackgate. I was talking to Brian and Janice from Blackgate. If you guys have drunk their lovely stuff in Dubbo, we went to a whiskey festival out there. But yeah, Brian's saying he just does peat. That's all he does. Just peat. He loves his peat. But yeah. Anyway, any questions on that one? Is that enough?
Yeah, pop through your questions, guys. And I might put up the poll, which I am very, very keen to see. Now, David, you and I can both see the results. but nobody else can. So don't go
Right.
spoiling until the end.
Have they polled yet, or they're about to do it now? Oh, here
Yeah.
we go. All right, here we go.
Yes. It's very exciting. It's like watching horse racing, but for whiskey. I don't know how else to describe it. You can see all the numbers shifting and changing. But yeah, you guys can vote for your top 2 favorite. So if you had more than one favorite from the wine series, if you had a favorite from one of the non-wine series and a wine series, so we understand that all whiskeys are very different, and sometimes you can't just pick one. So, but yeah.
Emma, are we only seeing this, or?
Only we are seeing this.
Oh,
And we'll
nice.
share the results with everybody else. So they can see what we voted for. Heidi's saying this has been awesome. Loved it. Need to book a ticket to Isla. To Isla or to Manly? But yeah, definitely go to Isla. It's amazing. Don't take the ferry though. The ferries are not operating. When I was there, all the distillery managers were like, so we're having weekly meetings about the ferry situation, because if we don't get it sorted before Fèis Festival, we're screwed. I think they were borrowing 4 ferries from another island, and the whole thing, but it is very expensive to fly there. So
3 more people to go.
yeah. Get your votes in. Last 2 people voting. So interesting to see. Obviously, as a host, I can't vote, but I do remember being very insistent that we bottle the Sangiovese cask when we tried the 3. So it's definitely one that I have around my house as well. It's super good. All right. Might end it now. You haven't voted. Got like 3 seconds. But share the results with everybody. And kind of not surprising to me, the Peated Port Cask is the clear winner, the clear favorite. So David, you're validated. You can tell Vanessa that peat is the way to go. That you guys should be definitely making more of that. The Aglianico and the Sangiovese both tied, which is cool. Great love for the Nor'easter as well. That's always nice to see.
Yeah.
Montepulciano getting a little bit of love, but bringing up the
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, David. If anybody has any more questions, please pop them in the chat quickly. And we'll get to it. Otherwise, I will share the link again for the Coastal Stone bottles that are 10% off on the whiskey list. Just for you guys, the discount automatically applies at checkout. If you wanted to grab a bottle, obviously, sadly, the Peated Port Cask is not available for sale, but given the results, I don't imagine it'll be too long before we see bottles of that appearing. But yeah, David, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Emma.
Thank you everyone who joined us, including the hecklers, Ian and Paul from Tin Shed Distillery and Tria Prima. So, but yeah, thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you at the next one. David, if you wanted to hang around for a little debrief, Ian, Paul, I suppose you can join.
Cheers.
Yeah,
thanks,
you,
guys.
everyone.
Thank you so much.
Am I back? I was frozen. Oh no. Did I manage to get all the information out?
You're still there? Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, all good. My Wi-Fi in my house absolutely hates me.